It is the Anfield Wrap. I'm Neil Atkinson. I've got Craig Hannan and John Gibbons with me. We're in Philadelphia. We're upstairs in Angelo's Pizzeria, which is the home of the best cheesesteak in Philadelphia. This might all get a little bit Anthony Bourdain as it wears on, but we've got on this show to come a little bit of Conor Bradley in a minute or two, and John and Craig actually at open training in Philadelphia. They've been there all day. I got to have a little bit more of a rest than they did. Also coming up, we've got Julie Lavigne from Time for Bed as well, who spoke to John a couple of weeks back. We're going to talk about the first game and the training that we've seen, and then we're going to get into the idea of the transfer links right the way through the show. More and more's come out. There'll be more and more action and activity, but with no further ado, we're going to crack on and get stuck right in to Conor Bradley, and then it'll be John and Craig at the open training.
Conor, that was some second half of last season. You know, you start for Liverpool, you start in the cup final, you win the cup final, score your first goal for Northern Ireland. When you had your time off, how did you reflect on the 6 months, and what was the highlight for you?
I don't think I can pick one highlight. I think it was pretty special, especially the last 6 months. It was crazy. All my dreams sort of came true in a short space of time, so now it was mental. But I just want to try building that now. Obviously keep trying to play as well as I can for Liverpool and also for the national team as well. Brilliant.
As an Northern Ireland fan, my dreams came true as well. Obviously a new manager, big changes. How have you found working under Arnie so far, and what differences have you seen in terms of what he's asking you to do?
No, it's been really good. It's been a really good start. Obviously we've had a lot of meetings and stuff like that, trying to get his playing style into us. So no, it's been really good, and obviously there's a couple of differences. Mostly it's sort of similar to last season. Obviously, especially when we don't have the ball. Obviously, he still wants us to press. He still wants us to win the ball back as quick as we can. But whenever we have the ball, he probably want a bit more structure in the build-up and stuff like that. So, no, but it's been really good and really enjoyed it.
It's your first tour.
Yeah, first tour.
Yeah, how have you found it so far? What have you thought of the American fans and the heat? You don't get that back home in Liverpool, do you?
You definitely don't get it back home. No, not a chance for that. But no, it's been really good. Really enjoyed it. Obviously, it's nice to go away with the boys. Obviously, I'm close mates with quite a lot of them, so to go away on a little tour like this is quite nice. And obviously, the American fans have been brilliant. Especially the other night, they're really good. So I've enjoyed it.
Brilliant, nice one, mate. Thanks for that.
So it's John Gibbons and Craig Hannan. We're at the stadium where they're going to play on Wednesday night. It is open training. It is Sunday morning. It's about 11 a.m. It's warm, but they're getting stuck in on the Craig. It's a good lively session. You never really know what to expect with these, because when they invite crowds in, they sometimes keep it a little bit sort of down low in terms of what they do. But after an interesting warm-up game attack, which the players got really into, you can see who's competitive in that. They're now doing some drills and looking sharp. But what I noticed from the coaches, it's the first time seeing them. There's loads of energy coming from them. They're really vocal. They're really sort of positive, and the players seem to be enjoying the sessions.
Yeah, one of the things we've known about Arne Slot is his role as head coach rather than the manager, and part of being a head coach is that you're going to get stuck in on the training sessions rather than stand and let the assistant take over. You can see that and hear that. Arne Slot's just right there. I think that must be his assistant. Do you know?
Yeah. There's a lot of Dutch people shouting.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, and you're right. They seem to be really, really enjoying it. I think one of the things about a new manager coming in is these players get to hear new messages. They get to do new exercises, new drills that they maybe haven't done before, and do the training a little bit differently, and that'll be refreshing to them all. So it's a class setting. Look at the stadium. It's brilliant, isn't it? It's very American, but very, very cool.
Yeah, no, it is. It's the first time, obviously, coming to the stadium. They play here on Wednesday night. It's impressive. It's going to be full. It is a sellout. The first game there was 43,000 there, but it looked kind of, it looked just over half full, the stadium. But this one is going to be a sellout against Arsenal on Wednesday, which is great. Hopefully more Liverpool fans than Arsenal fans. I mean, we'll sort of see about that. But, it's good to be here. It's good to be in Philly. Philly always felt like it was going to be sort of a big game because it's Liverpool v Arsenal. It's another test for the team, and I'm interested to see how they go. But the training's sharp. They're looking sharp. It's a shame Curtis Jones isn't out there. That's one sort of notable thing. Obviously, he picked up a little bit of a knock, and we haven't heard anything more about how sort of serious that is. But it's obviously keeping him out of training today. But everyone else is out there. It's nice for a bit of a small crowd over there. I don't know how many people got sort of they don't invite loads of people down, but for a few fans who were there, it is sort of good for them to see the likes of Mo Salah and Domson knocking them into to the goal behind me. That lad just missed right on cue there, nice one. Yeah, good for the few fans who sort of have been invited, but it's nice for us to be in the stadium. But it's going to be lively on Wednesday.
Yeah, it'll be brilliant. Philadelphia has a great supporters club, and I think that's quite a lot of their members that are going to be over watching that. The only thing I always come away thinking about these things is like it's a bit of a shame that there isn't something like this back home in the summertime, for fans in Liverpool and the UK to be able to experience it. But yeah, it'll be brilliant in here. The atmosphere, for a lot of people, this is their only opportunity to watch Liverpool Football Club, and many will not be able to go over to Anfield, so they get to do that tomorrow night. They get to see Mo Salah, they get to see some of the really exciting young players, and we get to continue to see what Arne Slot's going to be asking of his team and how he's going to set up. Diogo Jota's over there in training, by the way, so they might get to see him as well, which is exciting. Which might mean we might have a number 9, which will be groundbreaking. Arne Slot said to you the other night, didn't he, that he was only playing with the two sort of false 9s, would you call them, the 2 10s, with no sort of focal point attack, because he didn't have any 9s, so it tells you a story about Mo Salah. I think that it doesn't look as if we're going to see him in that position, but having Diogo back is really exciting.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see. I don't think he'll necessarily start, but hopefully we'll see some of Diogo Jota on Wednesday. There's a little bit of talk that a couple of other players might come out as well, maybe just for the training, but that game in South Carolina, you might see new faces, because for the manager, he'll want to work with as many players as he can, and you can tell that he's enjoying his work. You can see out there that he's enjoying the training, and the players who are working with him so far, we heard from Curtis Jones, how much he's enjoying it. You can see that they're enjoying the fun sessions, they're enjoying the more sort of intense footy ones now, but the more players he has to work with, the better, because the quicker they get his ideas, and you can see that now. The coaches are having to explain things a little bit more than what you would if you've been working people a little bit longer, and listen, that the players are picking it up because they're smart athletes. But the more people out here, the better, and the quicker these lads. You want them to have a good break, of course, but the quicker you can get back within the squad, the better for Liverpool and the new coach.
Yeah, Curtis Jones said something interesting about essentially everyone being on a level playing field, which when you think about it, you're right. There's some players there that get to have a second chance at Liverpool. You think of Fabio Carvalho, who's obviously gone out in a couple of loan moves, and one of which didn't quite work out, and one of which has. He's got a new start here. I heard him talking about what he thought his best position was, and Arne Slot thought it was something different. I think Slot thought he was a winger. He wants to be a 10. Liverpool have a lot of 10s there, and then obviously Sepp Vandenberg, who you'd imagine gets sold. He looked quite decent. He looked quite good the other night, but. And then you've got you get the likes of Szoboszlai and Salah, and I think it's interesting with Szoboszlai, by the way. There's been sort of various discussion points and pieces about where he's going to play, and the idea that he's not just an 8, that they've been trialling him on the wide areas, and they've also been. There's been talk that they talked about him as potentially playing in the 2 deeper on the double pivot. So we'll maybe see him move around in the game in Philly.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. I'm worried about the camera. Ash has currently got a bucket hat on the camera, but it's getting sort of very hot. It is very warm here.
I don't know how they're doing this, by the way. Like, I can't tell you, this dry heat, like to stand in is difficult. Never mind to play football with the intensity that they seem to be doing. That's another thing just to note before the camera dies and melts. Is the intensity. Obviously that was a big part of Jurgen and Pep Lijnders' identity when they were here. Well, it looks exactly the same for these lads. Doesn't look easy out there. Oh my God, don't. I'll cross one and he might have me doing them.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. I'm worried about the camera generally. We'll try and catch a couple of players hopefully up to that.
We are indeed in Philadelphia. Listen, we've still got our event to come in Colombia. Our Philadelphia event is sold out, but in Colombia, Tin Roof is where we will be before the final game against Manchester United. If you're in town, come down and check that out as well. Also, we're going to be at the fan park before the game against Philadelphia. We're looking forward to that massively. And also, there's Mo's event as well, LFC crossover, which is at Plough and Stars for the foundation. And also as part of that, he's got John Barnes and Gary McAllister will be doing something before then as well. It's been great so far, the tour, John. There's been loads and loads of positivity, loads and loads of action all the way through from everyone. We've enjoyed that aspect of it, but the most important thing, the thing that we're here to do as well, is the games, and we really enjoyed that opening fixture the other day against Betis. There was a lot to get your teeth into.
There was some good individual performances. There was some exciting performances from younger players. There was minutes for for a few others who you feel like, it's nice to see get a good pre-season, and it's just nice to win football games as well, and they did that. I think the next one will be a step up in terms of the test, but
absolutely.
But then they should be a little bit sharper. There's Diogo Jota added into the mix now as well, so at number 9 to play with, which he didn't have in the first game, and so was having to sort of adapt there. So I think we'll be better. Everyone needs to be better, but that's what you want from these pre-season games. You don't necessarily, want them, all guns blazing. It's we're not even out of July, but you do want to see them taking steps towards to what we know this, or suspect we know this Liverpool team can be. Obviously, it's a new team and a new coach, but you just want to see, stepping up each time, and that's what I want to see on Wednesday. But it was a good start in Pittsburgh, certainly.
With a bit more distance from the Betis game, Craig, we did immediate post-match pints. What was one of your main takeaways? For me personally, the thing I was just left with was, off the back of what we saw, even just for 27 minutes, I just really want Curtis Jones to be well and to be available, as soon as possible, because I thought he was playing ever so well in there. Everything was going through him, everything suited him. That's the thing that I, with more distance from it, that's the thing that I keep coming back to. What has stayed with you, or what have you been thinking about since that Betis game?
That's the most frustrating aspect. I think with the two in front of the defence, you're just looking at him and he's ready made for that. I actually come on thinking about it after the game. I was thinking about the fact that Liverpool have loads of really good midfielders that system will suit, where you can have a dynamic two dynamic centre midfielders in there that are able to hurt teams from deep. And I think whenever Trey Neone, who was my main takeaway from it, that was the thing that got me most excited about it, and I know we talked about that in the post-match pint. When he come on, instantly he was looking, and there was these direct balls that he was playing, and suddenly it was opening up the defence, and that's how the goal comes. I was really, really excited by him. It was interesting. I don't think he was training today. I didn't see him in the open training. I know we'll get on to that, but I hope to see more of him. I just don't think you can take loads from the first game for some of the reasons that you've just talked about. The fact that we didn't have a number 9, like we're all watching the game trying to work it out. Is he playing with 2 10s? Is it a false 9? Is this what he's going to be trying for the new season? And then he comes out afterwards like, I've got no 9s, mate. I've got no one to play the position. Wait till Diogo's back. So. Look, I was just excited to watch them again. I love seeing the young players. I love seeing them, the likes of Harvey Blair, come on and get given a chance and look really, really lively. These aren't footballers that we're going to be relying on anytime soon, hopefully, barring an injury crisis. But it's exciting to see, new players that you've not watched in the absence of signings, although we'd like some signings.
Yeah, we would. Listen, and I think the manager, would probably like 1 or 2 more as well. He'll be getting a better idea all the time of what he has got and maybe what he is missing, and he's learning. Obviously, he hasn't got everyone there at the moment, and so he'll be hoping that there's some of the things that he hasn't got, number 1 being a number 9, are solved by people just sort of coming back. But he's learning, and he's out there working with them, and he is so hands-on, and that's been really interesting to watch. In terms of the game, but also the training sessions that we have seen, and the one that we went down to today, he is really hands-on, and they're doing things a little bit differently, and they're working on things a little bit differently because all coaches do things differently. And I thought it was interesting watching them in open training today, sort of explaining what they were doing and why he wanted them to do it, and how to react in sort of certain situations, and we felt like we were all learning together. I was laughing with you before, Neil, saying sometimes you'd watch a Pep Linders press conference, a Pep Linders training session. You didn't have a clue what was going on. The players did, but you were like, what is it they're actually doing here? It was sort of these mad games that they played, whereas now it felt like everyone was sort of learning together, including us, which was interesting. But it was a sharp session today. It was a good one.
Yeah, it was really intense, and that's the other thing, that they've got 2 of those. They'll have done another one of those tonight probably. So that's 2 of those a day around the games. I think the thing I noticed from today, in comparison to say Singapore last year, was under Pep Linders, it felt like the team was constantly in a hurry to get up. They played a similar sort of little game today, but everything was a little bit slower. Would you say it was a bit more patient? Did you notice that? Yeah, and that's and I think that's maybe a bit of a sign of things to come.
When we, with what you've seen in the training today, John, who stood out, who impressed you on top of what you saw in the game against Real Betis? I wasn't at the training, you were.
Well, what was interesting, so we did the insert, and we did that sort of quite earlier, then we had to cut it a little bit short because the camera was overheating because it was so hot, but afterwards, It's also got more interest in the training session as it went in, really. So first of all, they were just playing these fun games, sort of warm up games. They were playing tag, and it was interesting just seeing like who's the most competitive. Mo Salah. You think, Mo Salah doesn't want to play a silly little game. He does if there's a winner.
And he was it.
Yeah. And so he did want to play this sort of capture the flag game that they were doing, and then they did a sort of a couple of other things as well. I think we've all seen them playing kabaddi and things like that. But once the most interesting bit with me, which was the bit that we did after the video, was when they basically had a match, and it was 10v10 in terms of outfield players, and they were. It was passages of play, and that was really interesting. And so he picked Jota in the first team, if you like. So it was Jota in for Curtis Jones, and everyone shuffled back a bit. So Jota was the striker, and then you had Carvalho wide left, Salah wide right.
How high was Carvalho?
Pretty high, but still very wide. But Carvalho was the most interesting to watch because they would encourage him so much, and he was on our side, so you could see what he was doing. But all the time the coaches were praising him. Even at one point he missed the sitter, but it was like, oh, you got into the right position, lad, type thing. The old sort of Shankly thing. You need to be there to miss him. They were really encouraging him sort of all the way through, and that was kind of really interesting to see. I think we're getting a cheesesteak order, which is so exciting. Just throw it on, honestly.
Just throw it on, honestly. Just the work on ceremony. Thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome. I'll run down with the cash in a minute. Yeah, cheers. And
this is all live. By the way, I thought Carvalho, I noticed exactly the same thing, and they actually had a coach essentially standing behind him, and each time something would happen, you'd see them talking to them.
Well, Curtis mentioned in the press conference thing about people being assigned a coach and things like that, and
he was essentially being mentored through the game, and you were talking about Arne Slot being more hands-on, like with those any that we've seen in the past. Klopp essentially stands at the side and just shouts, yes, Harvey, or like something like that if someone does something well. But this time Arne Slot, there was one stage where he was talking about Fabio Carvalho taking a pass, and he went through 4 different ways in which 4 different things that Carvalho could do with the ball in that moment that would send Liverpool on their way, and that was just the difference for me of the two. Salah banged a load of goals in. His finishing.
He enjoyed the crowd, didn't he?
Yeah, his finishing was blind. There was some lucky some lucky supporters who were able to get in. There wasn't many. It looked about maybe 500, maybe at most.
I'm surprised he didn't allow more in, because I know a lot of people applied and got knocked back, so they've obviously kept it low for whatever reason. But I'm surprised they let a few more in.
But they started to cheer the goals,
and Mo Salah that was all the encouragement Mo Salah needed.
Yeah. I also thought. And I am biased, but and because I was watching him closely, but I thought Conor Bradley looked like really, really sharp and on that right hand side, and you can see he's getting asked to overlap, same with Tsimikas on the left, and actually when we were talking about Carvalho earlier, I thought he looked really sharp as well. He was getting into the right spaces, as John said. He was getting into the back post. There was a couple of really, really smart goals he scored as well.
Anything else from you from it that you?
Yeah, just the midfield shape was a little bit different. So it was Endo, Szoboszlai and Harvey Elliott, and they set up sort of how you'd imagine. So we've been talking about him liking this too in front, and listen, he still might end up sort of favouring that, but this was a lot more like what we saw from the midfield last season, which was 1 deeper, in this case Endo, and then 2 ahead of them, Szoboszlai and Elliott. And so Elliott seems to be like he's very much being considered as a midfielder by the new manager.
Which side did Elliott play?
Right, and Szoboszlai was left, and they did well in the session. They're good footballers, aren't they? And how the team's playing at the moment in terms of trying to sort of progress the ball through. You think that would like, but they were pressing well as well. Carvalho was pressing really well. Yeah, he was sort of snapping into tackles and looking to win it back. And both teams. The teams who played against each other were practicing sort of passing it through, but both of the opposition, if you like, were making it difficult for them to sort of do that, really. But they were continuing to try and play in, obviously, the way that the manager wants him to. But on the other side, they were continuing to sort of do that and look to progress it through. But yeah, the midfield shape, and it sort of suggests that what we saw in the first game and then what we saw in this training session, that the manager's got his ideals, but he's also pragmatic, and he's also one who's able to go, well, listen, if this is what I've got, then I'll
this is
sort
what
of
I've got at
deal with
disposal
that.
right now. Well, let's just do
Yeah,
this. Do
rather
it this
than
way.
be like, no, I play this way, and I'm going to ask a player to do something that he doesn't feel suited to. And I'm like, no, I'm going to adapt to sort of what we've got. That's what, little things that I've taken so far.
All of this as well was it was 10v10 but in one half, so everything was condensed, and that's the thing I always think whenever you get that close to footballers, particularly in training sessions, is they're so good in tight spaces. Like when they look like they're in trouble, they're not. They've they're able to find the little pass inside, or find the overlap. Szoboszlai was class in that regard. The last thing on the training that I noticed as well was at the end when everyone else finished, Stefan Pacetic was doing his own one-on-one training. Essentially they were pinging balls in on the half turn, and he was just doing that over and over and over again.
Yeah, it was interesting that, because sometimes you'll see a player like do a little bit more running or stretching or finishing, but he was carrying on his own with two coaches, and they were firing in balls either side, and yeah, that was interesting to me as well.
Excellent all round. Just gonna take a break in a minute, and we're gonna get Julie Lavigne in for from Time for Bed, the chat you did with her, John. But before then, we're about to have the cheesesteaks. We're in Philadelphia. We've been to Philadelphia before, but only for about 18 hours with the Anfield Wrap. We went to baseball today, which was really interesting, good to do. Philadelphia feels like it's very much the centre of this. I'm not talking Columbia down, but it feels like Philadelphia is the centre of this for Liverpool, and it feels as though it's the centre of it for the fans as well. It's a really good supporters club here. We love the supporters club in Pittsburgh as well. It's a really good supporters club in Philadelphia. There's loads and loads going on around everything. It feels as though, firstly, Philadelphia is bang on board, but also everyone who's part of all of this is bang on board for Philadelphia as well.
Yeah, a lot of people from the other supporters clubs, this is the one they've picked. So I was chatting to some of the guys from Boston just before, and they said, they're coming in and meeting up. I know the guys from Exiles last night are coming up over for it and staying in our hotel, and so it feels like the one that the other cities have had a look at and think, I'm going to sort of go to Philly, for a variety of reasons. Like, it's a cool city, obviously it's a big game, Liverpool v Arsenal, and sort of when it was announced, I'm sure was in a factor as well. But I think there's going to be a big crowd, there's going to be a noisy crowd, there's going to be tailgating, and we know they get competitive there, so that's going to be sort of fun. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. But I mean, it's only Sunday, and there's already events going on. Lou from the sports club was here before, and he'd been down to their bar this afternoon, and they'd had Natasha Dowie down, and I think maybe Sammy Hoopier was there as well. And so this is like 3 days before the game, and they're already doing stuff, and so there's a lot going on. I know there's
match day -3 to use the terminology that gets used.
But there's foundation events on tomorrow, doing some coaching and things like that. There's a lot happening already in the city, which is great if you're from here and you're football mad like the people we know from the sports club are here.
It's brilliant as well, like the likes of the Jimmy Webster events, because that's a real opportunity for a lot of fans that maybe don't get the opportunity to experience the fan culture in Liverpool, and for it to be Jamie as well this year is an added bonus.
Excellent stuff indeed. So we'll crack on with the cheesesteaks. We'll see where we end up. Coming back, we're going to talk about the Endo transfer developments, more Anthony Gordon links, Ben Doak on loan, Berg, loads and loads of stuff all the way through. We'll do this, but here, talking to John Gibbons, is Julie Lavigne.
And it is John Gibbons, and I'm now joined by Julie Lavigne from
Hi,
Time
John.
for Bed. Julie, thanks so much for coming in. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. Really glad to be here.
So tell us more about this fantastic Liverpool initiative, Time for Bed.
So, I work for Furniture Poverty, we're a Liverpool-based charity. You might not have heard of us, but you will have heard of one of our social businesses, Bulky Bobs.
Yeah.
Everyone remembers the big purple vans. So, Furniture Poverty is on a mission to tackle and eradicate furniture poverty, both locally and across the UK. So a lot of the work we do is research and campaign, and we produce a lot of reports to influence and encourage those who make decisions to change things for the better, particularly around, obviously at the moment, cost of living crisis, social welfare is a huge issue. But furniture poverty is hidden poverty because it's behind closed doors, and a lot of the time we don't know what's going on. But last year, Furniture Poverty produced a report called The Extent of Furniture Poverty in the UK. We identified there was 18,000 children across Merseyside alone who haven't got a bed of their own to sleep in. Wow. And it's a shocking figure, that, isn't it? People don't quite believe it when you tell them. They're like, 18,000 children just around here? And I'm like, yeah, honestly. So we'd also had contact with some local schools. One in particular had told us they had pupils there who didn't have beds of their own. So we got some funding from the incredible Steve Morgan Foundation. They fund my post, and we developed the Time for Bed campaign. 100% reliant on fundraising, so we can't do anything unless we get money in. But what we do is we provide free bed bundles for children across Merseyside. We work directly with local schools, so they partner with us. They make a referral online. It's a really simple online form they fill in. They tell us what they need for the pupils in their school, and we provide the beds. We do single bed bundles, bunk bed bundles, and cot bed bundles. So with that, you get the full thing, the beds, the mattress, you get the duvets, the pillows, and 2 bedding sets as well. Because quite often, if people can't afford a bed, they need the bedding that goes with it. They need the full set. So we do that. We provide them for any child between 0 to 18. So the only criteria is that the school has identified that they're a pupil or they're a sibling of a pupil in the school, and that they know they haven't got a bed of their own.
Yeah.
That's it in a nutshell. That's what we do.
So it's a really focused charity, isn't it? It's focused on helping these children who just giving them something that seems so basic to me, but obviously for them, you know, it isn't there, and you just think about what that must give for quality of life. And we focus so much on meals for children, things like that, and listen, that is massive, so important. But a good night's sleep, and you know, we want kids to learn, we want kids to be able to play and to focus and to be everything that they need to be in their lives. And
absolutely,
you know, you can't stress how much having a bed in the night's a massive part of that.
That all starts with a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got, if you go on Furniture Poverty's website, there's a list of essential furniture items. Obviously, a bed is one of those. And again, it's just shocking to think in this day and age that there's so many people without basic furniture items and so many children without beds. But yeah, I mean, good night's sleep's key. You know yourself, if you've ever had a bad night's sleep, or if you've ever had to sleep on someone's couch because you've stayed overnight somewhere else, you know how it is.
Yeah.
If you know, or you know, you've had to share a bed with someone, you know, little sister or brother, or you know, if your kids get in bed with you at night and they're tossing and turning and they're starfishing and everything, you know, you wake up in the morning. Do you feel as productive? Do you feel as well rested? You don't, do you? Imagine if that's your every day, and imagine if you're a child and you're waking up like that every day, and then you're supposed to go to school, you're supposed to be fresh, you're supposed to be ready to learn. You're not going to be, are you? It causes so many issues for children. So neurologically, that's when we develop, when we're sleeping. And physically, it's great for growth. Emotionally, not having a bed is also a big stumbling block for children. They don't feel that they can talk about that.
Yeah.
You know, the little things that we take for granted, like your kids having sleepovers. Children can't get involved in the social aspects of like school, with friends. They can't do those sorts of things. You know, we've had lots of pupils that we've supported where, you know, the punctuality has been poor, their attendance has been poor, you know, the relationship between school and family has been poor, and all because the children haven't been able to get a good night's sleep. They haven't been able to get up in time. They haven't been able to get to school. You know, if they get up in the late and mum or dad thinks, oh, you know, we'll get into trouble now if we don't get in school, and they might just keep them off because the children are so tired, you know, all that really impacts. But we've had some great feedback, great success stories from the teaching staff where we've provided beds for children, saying it's been fantastic. You know, their energy, their enthusiasm is like gone up. They've got pupils who couldn't even get through the school day now taking part in extracurricular activities and clubs after school, you know, because they're ready to go. So yeah, it's like, I can't stress how important it is. It really is. It's vital for children.
I mean, I hadn't even thought about the kind of the emotional side of it for that children, because I'm thinking my children, well, my boy, my girl's a little bit young, but my lad, he loves his bed, do you know what I mean? Like, he loves sort of going, he loves having that space for himself and stuff like that. And so, you know, when maybe you haven't got that, and then, like you say, you start seeing your friends, you go around to your friends' house, you go, oh, why have they got that? It must be really tough. So I bet it gives them not just a great night's sleep, but a real sense of pride that I've got this thing that's my own.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of our schools reported back that the day after that their pupil got their own bed, they came in and they were telling them all about it. They were really excited, and they were saying, and I'm going to have my bedroom painted as well now that I've got a bed in there. You just can't imagine, can't underestimate how much the positive impact this has, not just in the child's life who's we're providing a bed for, but the family as well and the wider community, because it makes a difference for so many things in people's lives. Parents, as we talked about, cost of living crisis, people are struggling, particularly for
so
food
many more
and
people are
fuel.
struggling, aren't they, with everything going up, and it feels like a larger and larger portion of society are now struggling to keep up with the rising prices and everything that you have to pay for.
Absolutely.
And things slip.
And if we can do this one thing, if we can provide a bed for a child, it takes some of the weight off a parent or carer who's already impacted financially by the cost of living crisis. And we also provide a support booklet. So for every bed that gets sent out, we have a little support booklet that tells a little bit about what local other support there is, such as food banks in the area, and also national support, again, things like citizens' advice, fuel, energy support, things like that. So we provide that as well. So because we know if those families are struggling for furniture, they'll be struggling for other things.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of signposting for them, something else they can take away and look at. And if they need to get in touch with any other services, they're there for them.
It's a fantastic initiative. Obviously, we rather, we didn't need it as a city, but I'm just wondering if there's other similar organisations across the country that have something like this, or are we fairly unique to have it?
There are a couple of other places that are delivering something similar.
Yeah.
Something being done in Leeds by an organisation there. And there are a couple of other little places I've seen. Surprisingly as well, when I've used social media, I've found other places internationally as well. So quite a few places I follow in the States as well, who have similar organisations providing beds for young people as well. So, you could say it's a global crisis. I mean...
Yeah, I know, of course it is, but we have an organisation in Liverpool looking to do something about it, and that is, fantastic. If people are watching this and want to help, and how could you not? I'm looking about to see if there's any beds here I can give you. Honestly, it is so incredible what you're doing and so vital, and we all just want kids to have the best possible start in life, and this is such a huge part of it. It's incredible what you're doing. How can we help? How can I help? How can people watching help?
Okay, well, you can donate for a start if you want to. You can on our website, there's lots of information there about how you can make donations or how you can support us in other ways. So we don't just ask people for cash, obviously. Cash is great, we love cash. But people can do other things to support us. So they can undertake their own fundraising events. So we've got a school at the moment that has chosen us as their charity of the year. So they're doing lots of things throughout the school term to fundraise for us. They've had a pyjama day and they made special Christmas tree decorations over Christmas and got donations in for that. So lots of different ways people can do things. Obviously, corporate sponsorship or a high profile patron would be fantastic. It's about raising awareness. You would think that this is something that everyone would be aware of, but they're not.
No.
And in a time of financial crisis like this, with so much going on nationally, and there are so many bigger organisations that kind of grab the headlines quite a lot of the time. So some of us smaller charities and smaller groups that are doing our bit and doing vital work sometimes get overlooked.
Of course.
So we just want people to raise awareness for us as much as possible, and raise donations too. Raise funds for us and raise awareness. So you can follow us on socials. As I said, you can go on our website. You can make donations directly. If you're a company and you'd like to be a sponsor or give us a donation or do anything else to help, it could be staff fundraising, payroll giving, we don't mind. We'll take anything.
Do help if you can. Like Julie says, there's a lot of organisations obviously doing fantastic work at the moment that are very worthy of people's support and people's time and people's money. But I think this one, is incredible. It is incredible what they are doing, and these children, the impact that just a small donation can make is absolutely huge as well. But Julie, thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
actually suddenly joined by Mo upstairs at Angelo's before his event at the Plough and the Stars on Monday night. Mo, what should everyone expect from the LFC crossover?
Well, they should expect fun. They should expect laughter. They should expect everything that you associate with me. So a nerdy obsession with sports, but also a good time. And I think what we wanted to portray was that the people who love American sports, people who love Philly sports, aren't that different from the people who love Liverpool. And the whole show is going to be dedicated to proving that, but in terms of the way we talk about Liverpool, it's the same way they talk about their own team. So a good example, the Phillies. If you ask people, the Phillies fans a month ago, they just said they're winning everything. They're winning the World Series. They're winning a lot. They've lost the last 2 games out of 3. So now the whole world's caved in. And it's kind of like, oh, well, yeah, that feels very, very similar to what we go. And it's a celebration of all of those things that we love from both sports. And, yeah, John Barnes is going to be there. Gary McAllister is going to be there. We're going to be chatting with them. And then we're going to be chatting to some Philly media people. So Keith Pompey, who's like the Sixers beat writer, is coming down. Renee Washington, who's like a podcaster about the Phillies, about the Flyers, about the Union. Kevin Kincaid from Crossing Broad, kind of like a little bit of the Philly version of the Anfield Wrap, in as much as they're podcasters, but they're also bloggers, and they're involved with everything. It's just a little bit of a flavour of Philly with a bit of Liverpool mixed in as well.
You've been here longer than we have been. You flew in late last week. It seems to me as though Philadelphia is very ready for Liverpool. I've seen shirts everywhere today, absolutely everywhere. Obviously, there was the open training today, but has that been the vibe since you've been here?
Oh, yes. I think it's been the vibe since long before I've been here. So even when I've been speaking to people in and around, people I know who are from Philly, they've been absolutely rabid for this. So they had the NBC Fan Fest, the Premier League Fan Fest last year, and that had such a big impact on the city and on even on the NBC and the people behind it. So it was like, oh wow, Philly are really into their football, and from that they've kind of taken it and ran with it. So we are absolutely ready for all of it. I honestly, today at the Link was just a really good taster of it, because there were small little things that you wouldn't necessarily would have thought would have even made a difference. So we were watching one of the small-sided games, and they were just doing passing out from the back training, and then there was a shot at the end, and Harvey took a shot and he missed it. And everyone went, oh! And then he took a shot and he scored. And everyone went, wait! And it was like, he turned around and was like, fucking hell, lads, this is training. What are you on about? But like I say, Philly are ready. They're ready for all this.
Excellent stuff. So it is at the Plough and the Stars. Get down. What's your start time?
6:15 start time and going through till 12. I should probably point out as well that we've got Dan Morgan doing some DJing, and he's going to have some signed books as well. So if you're a fan of him and a fan of his music, then come on down.
Excellent stuff indeed. Is right from Mo. Get back to John and Craig. Great stuff there from Mo, and before then from Julie, and also John, who Julie was speaking to. I was quite good as well with Mo. So across the board, we've got everything covered, everything that you need. I am back with John and with Craig.
We've had sandwiches. I think we need to
be clear. You and Craig have absolutely walloped them.
It was unbelievable. Ash too. Absolutely unreal. Thank you so much. Unbelievable.
You've very much wallowed in them, and now you've got, I'm not going to say buyer's remorse because you loved every minute of it, but you now look like a man who's just eaten a foot-long cheesesteak.
I've fallen off it.
You've got to talk into the microphone, mate.
I was a tired man before and I've fallen off a cliff now after that, but give me a half an hour and it's so much food. It's ridiculous. The portion sizes here are outrageous. I know that's not new news, but like,
it's not new news.
My body's really feeling it, and I looked at myself in the mirror earlier and I was like, I've got a wedding after this and I'm never getting into the trousers that I'm going to be wearing.
No, it was the absolute business, an absolute delight. I've kept a third of mine back for later on as an option, and I'm delighted with my decision making.
Future Neil's going to love you.
Future Neil is going to think
that's make it home though.
Yeah, it's got. Well, that's the concern, but it's got to make it home. But we're going to see what we can do. Going to back ourselves anyway. It's been intriguing, John. There's actually been sort of, it feels like a bit more sort of action around transfers, or at least chat around transfers. I'll start with the Ben Doak on loan thing. I was struck actually watching him stand up as fullback over and over again against Betis, thinking there might be a place for him somewhere in this season. The flip side is, though, is back to this constant age-old conundrum, which is between effectively, is he better off in a universe where he might get 9 Liverpool appearances and train with Liverpool all the way through the season, or a universe where maybe he gets a really good level of regular football? And I think for all the players, there's always a bit of a decision to be made, and I don't think it's straightforward, but it does sound as though the club would be open to the idea of loaning Ben Doak for the season.
Yeah, I think it does make sense. I think, it needs to be remembered, first of all, that there's other young players about as well, and Kate Gordon is out on this tour, and we all remember, how sort of excited we were about him when he broke through. Jane Dance is out at the moment, but another one who's been sort of linked away with a loan, and we saw how good he was last season. And Jane Dance is exactly the same type of player, but you can only have one of them on the bench probably, unless there's a real sort of problem. And so they'll probably look at them as a group really and think, well, if these players that are coming through, who do we sort of keep around? Who do we think there might be minutes for, and who's better off going on loan? And that's not to say that if one of them goes on loan and one of them stays, that one is ahead of the other. I think you just make decisions based on what's best for the player at that time, and also what offers sort of come in, and that's what they'll be looking at, because they do a lot of care into these loan moves. And so I remember a few years ago with one player, they made the clubs do PowerPoint presentations on how they were going to use him. That was Ben Woodburn, and so I think it is a big thing that they sort of think of. So it might be just a case of for Ben Doak, will he get a really exciting offer that the club feel like it's going to be sort of good for his development, and so they make the decision that way. So there's lots of factors that go into it, but I think it'd be good for him personally, because I think he needs to play, and I think also, although there's a lot of talent there, I think it needs to click for him in terms of the end product a little bit, and I think that only comes from playing.
Only comes from playing. It's interesting, the couple of clubs. You got Leicester, you got Southampton, both. Well, last season Leicester, we're not too sure about this season because there's been a change of manager, but Southampton especially play really, really progressive football, really intriguing football. I feel as though they could be nice options for him.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you look at some of the players that have gone out on loan over the past few years and where they come back, Bradley's the one that sticks out to me in terms of it just propels them to another level. And I think for these young players, Quanta as well, of course, yeah. And for these young players, it's about finding their confidence and finding momentum at that level, that particular level. And I think that's what it did for Bradley, going out there and being the best player in the team, and then coming back to Liverpool and everyone seeing how much he'd improved and him feeling like he'd improved. I think with Doak, it still feels mad to me that he comes on as a substitute in the very first game of last season, and so Liverpool obviously looked at him last summer and thought, actually this might be a really good option off the bench if Liverpool need a goal, or they want to, they've got some tired fullbacks that they want to try and hurt late on in the game. He can make a difference. I just think injuries have curtailed that a little bit, and I think a low move would be perfect for him, because similar to what happened with Harvey Elliott a few years ago, when he came through, he was so exciting. You're just looking at this player, his ceiling felt like it could be so high. Low move, go out, be their best player, and come back, and you'd see a new footballer, I think.
Okay, all good and interesting on that one. The Endo thing that's broken, which may well be from a few weeks back, there's been reports of that as well, John. The idea that Marseille are interested around the sort of 11 to 14 million mark for him. Liverpool have knocked it back, but then the next sort of phase of that from the journalists who are around Liverpool are saying, well, they might not knock the next one back. I think it's a really intriguing and quite suggestive little bit of transfer rumour mongering, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, he'd need replace it, is what I would say. And so, if he does leave, then I could sort of understand it, but what I'd be saying is, well, who are you getting in then? And maybe I think numbers wise they might feel like that they're okay, but maybe they feel like there's certain areas of the pitch where if we could upgrade, then they should look to do it. I mean, that's probably pretty much everywhere, really. You always have ambitions to be better, aren't they? But I think in terms of that position, that might be one where they've looked at it and thought, that is somewhere where we feel like we can upgrade, and maybe they're feeling like they've had a look at him and they're not quite sure that the new sort of coaching staff. It's interesting, isn't it? Because we all talk about it being a benefit to the players, the ones who are back early, but it doesn't always. Do you know what I mean? Like you can have a quick decision based on your good and bad. Do you know what I mean? And so you think, you want to be in the manager's thoughts, but he has been able to sort of assess Endo. Obviously, he doesn't play very well the other night, but I don't think he's be using that as too much of a basis on whether he's the right player for him moving forward. But we've talked a lot, haven't we, over the last few days over what Slot in particular wants from midfielders and how it is going to be different. And Curtis Jones talked about that, and it's less of an engine room, it looks like, and kind of more of creativity and more to do with the style of play of how we're going to moving forward. And maybe he sort of had a look at Lendo and just isn't quite sure how he fits in. So it's an interesting one. I very much watch this space.
I think it's, when they sign him, it's one of those where he's essentially a stopgap for the fact that they weren't able to get, I think it was Caicedo at the time, and there wasn't anyone else that they're looking around and thinking that they could come in and do the business for them. I think it's one of those where they just took a bit of a punt on him, and the plan always was that the following summer, they'd get as much out of him whenever they needed him, which they did for 3 or 4 months. Endo was excellent. And then they would move him on, maybe even at a profit if they could, and that's probably what I can see that happening. But like John says, I think that he would need replacing, and it'd be interesting to see what that replacement is. Whether they're looking at someone and they've got someone lined up, so they're thinking, well, if we can get 14 million or whatever that's been discussed for Endo, then that helps pay for someone else who's younger, who's more excited, more suited to what he's going to be asked of this season. I just think that the double pivot in front of the defence is set up perfectly for so many of these more progressive attacking centre midfielders that we've got, even the likes of Gravenberch, who no one's mentioned recently, but you and I were talking about the fact that just feels as if that's right for him. And so it's where's Endo getting the game, or and is it best if we move him on now? Because if we don't move him on now, then how much are we going to get for him next year whenever he's hardly played?
It's the next sort of part of that, though, John, is that there's got to be the idea of obviously getting one more, but more that it therefore has to be one that fits. Let's be clear about this. It's one that fits is the next challenge, and I think we're getting closer and closer to maybe being able to get a bit of a sense of that. The next 2 games will tell us a bit more. Sevilla at Anfield may well tell us a bit more, and then it could be a situation where the next one is late in the window, as Endo himself was, but then you've got to bite the bullet then that it still might take him a couple of months to get himself where the manager wants.
Yeah, I think generally when you were speaking there, I was thinking that it is going to be really interesting who he signs first, and who is the first signing of this new era, of the Arne Slot era, but also backwards sort of Michael Edwards, Richard Hughes coming in, and who this player is, and his status, the price tag, the position he plays. All of it, we are unsure, really. Is it a younger player? Is it someone a bit more established? Is it someone in that sort of little sweet spot that they like? 150 games and things like that. Is it a wide forward? Is it a holding midfielder? If it is, what kind of midfielder is he? I think it is going to be really interesting to see. And you talk about looking for clues and talk about looking for ways forward. I think whoever this player is going to give us another piece of this jigsaw that we're all still trying to figure out.
Let's hope it works out better than Marco Grujic, who was Klopp's.
Klopp's first indeed was Marco Grujic. Although he's gone on to have a fairly good career, to be fair to Marco. There is, on that then, John, Anthony Gordon. It doesn't seem to be going anywhere. It still feels like it's a little bit more gossip than reality, but there is a little bit of a ticking clock, because we can see the same ticking clock knocking around Trent Alexander-Arnold about him going back to Newcastle first game of training. I think we'll have a sense of effectively what that is, what's likely to happen with that. I think possibly in the next 7 days. If he goes back to Newcastle and it's made out as though everything's fine and dandy, then it may well be that Liverpool will wait. But if he doesn't really want to go back at all, then now's the time for there to be some action.
Yeah, I think it seems, and from what you read, it seems like the move, the wheels started turning and then they stopped turning, and he was like, "Oh, hang on, I quite like those wheels. Can they turn again, please?" And so I don't think he was necessarily going into the summer thinking about leaving Newcastle, but once small moves were made, and who made those moves is obviously very much up for debate. But I think for the player, he was looking at it as a possibility, liked it, and then now won't mind it becoming a possibility again. But he can want it, and Liverpool want it. But at the end of the day, the clubs need to do a deal, and that's where I get a little bit sceptical about whether it will happen, because I think there is the contract situation you talked about. It's a couple of years left, which isn't ideal, but I don't think they'll feel like they necessarily have to sell, or certainly not for a cut down price. And whether Liverpool are really willing to, I think Liverpool probably like him, because why wouldn't they? But whether they like him to the tune of what he would cost to get him away from Newcastle, that's what I'm a little bit sceptical about. So I think it'll happen, but
I'm not convinced about this summer, but we'll see.
I think it'll happen. I think it's as soon as you find out your football club is essentially offered you to someone, then and it's a football team that means a lot to you, then it becomes it changes things completely, I think. And I think it is interesting to see sort of what happens whenever he comes back at training. I actually don't think that much, because he's training with his teammates and he's training with his manager, and actually it's the people upstairs that are making the decisions on this kind of thing. I think one way or another,
he wouldn't be back training, I wouldn't have thought, until sort of 5th, 6th of August, because he was part of the England squad. They go out as late as they do, so I suspect it'll be a similar timeline to Trent.
There'll have been discussions between Liverpool and Anthony Gordon's people, and if Anthony Gordon wants it as much as we hope he does, I think, then Liverpool can be patient, and whether that's being patient this summer and getting him at the end, and whether it is being patient and being able to get him next summer. But I think it's just one that, to me, that looks like it could happen.
Okay. Last one is, Van den Berg said some interesting stuff after the game the other night. Quotes of it have come out. I just want to sort of go through the quotes, because I think they're just sort of quite insightful, to be honest with you. He's quite sort of... He phrases it, John, as maybe I stay, maybe I go. I'm here now. Liverpool is one of the biggest clubs in the world. It has always been my dream to play here. It is still my dream. I spoke to Arne on the first day, and he said I have to show myself in pre-season. Of course, I have my own visions about things I like to play. He goes on to say, for a centre-back, you need the experience of being in the rhythm of playing every game. That's where I made the biggest steps in terms of the training and environment here. You can't get any better than Liverpool, but when I was away at Mainz, I played every game, stayed fit, made big steps. I really enjoyed it. It's very, very honest quotes, which first and foremost I think is admirable. Very grown-up quotes. You get the impression with them, that is the challenge. I think it is just different for centre backs. Every position on the pitch has got different values and different things that you need. And his idea of he probably needs to be looking at a situation where he feels he can play 25 out of 38 minimum. I just don't think he's going to get it here. To me, they're not want-away quotes. I think they're really respectful quotes. But I can't quite see how he gets what he wants at Liverpool, if that makes sense.
No, and I think that's where he's got to, and I think that's sensible. I really like him. He's got a good vibe about him. We've been around him a few times. He stopped in the mix zone. He was speaking to Redmen today. He's done the ones the other day that you mentioned sort of as well, that those quotes have come from. And he just seems like a very personable guy. A nice kid. But he wants to be a footballer, and I think he's looking at it, and I think he just expected to go away to be concluded sort of this summer, and then there's this slightly strange situation where there's the price tag that he doesn't necessarily agree with, but also the fact that there's a manager like literally from his hometown who's sort of come in, who seems to quite like him, and so I think there's a bit of him that going, well maybe we'll see a bit. Like, I think his preference would still be to sort of go, but I think suddenly Liverpool is looking a little bit more positive than it was sort of 6 months ago or a few months ago even, and so I think he's looking at it and thinking, well maybe I will get a few more games than what I thought, and what would I be prepared to stomach, because Liverpool is the best place to play football, but if you're not playing, then careers are only sort of so long really. And he probably looks at someone like Nat Phillips, who again is on this tour, who's just sort of never quite got his move really, and has always been persuaded to hang around a little bit more because he's been like the break glass emergency, and so he sort of got this reminder on this trip with him of how a career can peter out a little bit. I mean, that's maybe being harsh, because he's got some great memories. Nat Phillips had some great moments, but I don't think that's what Seth Van den Berg wants, and that's not what he seems to want. When you sort of, you're looking at him and hearing him speak, like you say, really impressively.
Personal development and life are sort of the two things here. You probably know, we can write this stuff off as trite, not least because we know that footballers are fortunate to earn a great deal of money. But Seth Van den Berg probably just wants to know where he's going to live for a couple of years at least, as part of all of this. And then is what he's now viewed as being so important for his development was playing. And again, I think that when someone is honest about what they think they need for their development, I think you can only respect it, to be honest with you, Craig. I do, as I say, I think the quotes show a really, really solid maturity.
Yeah. Listening to him, he as Gibbons said, he came across really, really well, really, really mature. completely different to the last time we were in the States, which was 2019, of course, when he just joined and he was just this timid kid and looked timid in the training sessions. You're watching him today and, you know, he's commanding as a centre-back. You know, he's probably not at the level that we want, but he was brilliant last season, and he's probably thinking to himself, well, I've been one of the best centre-backs in that league. You know, I could go to PSV and do it again this season, and then and know where I'm living and be there for 2 or 3 years and then take the next step rather than hanging around, you know, going on loan here and there and that being a bit of a risk. He has the confidence now as a footballer to do it at a club that wants him, quite frankly, actually, and makes him feel wanted.
Excellent stuff indeed. I very much agree, Craig. It's been the Anfield Wrap this week. We recorded it on Sunday night, so you will get it on Monday morning as we go through. So if anything's broken in the meantime, anything major especially, we'll definitely have a reaction thing out as soon as humanly possible. It's been a pleasure so far in Pittsburgh. Anyone who came to our live show at the pitch, thank you so much for doing so. And anyone who came to Exiles as well in Washington, thank you so much for doing that too. Been really, really kind so far. We're looking forward to seeing people in Philadelphia, seeing people in Colombia, and looking forward to experiencing more of what Arne Slot's Liverpool has got to offer. It's been a cast of thousands all the way through the show. So I just want to personally thank Conor Bradley for spending some quality time with the wee man. See you later on.